Chapter 11. The Betrayer's Challenge. Dawn of the fifth day arrived with unsettling beauty. Clouds gathered on the horizon, neither threatening immediate rain nor promising clear skies, but instead creating a canvas for the rising sun to paint in unusual hues of amber and crimson. The light touched the mountain village with golden fire, transforming ordinary structures into structures of mythic significance. Takeshi knelt alone in the small shrine, where prayers had been offered for both Daichi's departed spirit and Hiroshi's recovery. His breathing remained measured despite the sharp pain in his side. The wound from his earlier duel had improved, but remained far from healed. With each deep inhalation came a reminder of his vulnerability, a limitation he would need to manage in the coming confrontation. His fingers traced the bandaged area beneath his kimono. Miyako's treatments had accelerated the healing process beyond normal expectation, yet no medicine could fully restore what had been damaged. Today he would fight at reduced capacity against an opponent who had demonstrated ambition matched only by his capability. "Your wound troubles you," observed Miyako, appearing at the shrine entrance with uncanny timing. The old healer moved with the quiet efficiency that belied her years, a small container already in her hands. "It is manageable," Takeshi replied, neither denying the obvious nor exaggerating his condition. "Perhaps, but manageable is not optimal." She knelt beside him, setting the container between them. "I've prepared something specifically for this day." Takeshi studied the dark liquid within the container. "Will it dull the pain?" "It will transform it," Miyako corrected. "Pain is information your body provides. This doesn't silence the message, but changes how you receive it, not as limitation, but as parameter." Takeshi nodded, understanding. Unlike Kenji, who might have questioned the old woman's cryptic explanations, or Daichi, who might have dismissed them entirely, he had come to respect the wisdom behind her methods. After consuming the bitter preparation, he felt a curious warmth spreading through his injured side. Not the absence of pain, but its reconceptualization, as though the damage had become data rather than distraction. "The others await you," Miyako said, rising with fluid grace that suggested her own daily consumption of age-defying preparations, each with counsel to offer before you face the commander. In the main house, Hiroshi reclined on a sleeping mat, his severe injuries from the previous day's duel wrapped in poultice-soaked bandages. Despite his condition, the veteran warrior's mind remained sharp, his eyes clear as Takeshi entered. "The commander fights differently than their champion," Hiroshi stated without preamble. "Where the champion embodied their traditions perfectly, Vex'tar continuously tests their boundaries." "You observed him during your duel?" Takeshi asked, kneeling beside the injured Ronin. Hiroshi nodded slightly, the movement clearly causing discomfort he chose to ignore. "Not participating in combat freed me to study their hierarchy. The commander watches everything with calculation, not merely assessment. He analyzes not just techniques, but intentions, seeking weaknesses in approach rather than merely execution." "And his own fighting style?" "Adaptive rather than patterned. The champion fought with perfect integration of established forms. I suspect Vex'tar will introduce variations deliberately designed to disrupt expectations." Hiroshi's scarred hand gripped Takeshi's arm with surprising strength. "Be wary of assumptions. What worked against previous opponents may be precisely what he has prepared to counter." Takeshi nodded appreciation for this insight before moving to where Masaru and Kenji waited in the adjoining room. The two younger Ronin had been engaged in low conversation that ceased as he entered, their expressions reflecting the day's gravity despite their different temperaments. "He'll target your injury," Kenji stated immediately, characteristic directness undiminished by recent events. "I would." "Undoubtedly," Takeshi agreed. which provides opportunity as well as vulnerability. Masaru nodded, understanding. Anticipated focus creates exploitable patterns. My defensive approach would be to yield that area deliberately while preparing counters for the expected follow-through. While my approach, Kenji added, with a hint of his usual irreverence, would be to make him believe the injury more significant than it is. Let him overcommit to what he perceives as guaranteed advantage. Takeshi absorbed both perspectives, recognizing the complementary wisdom in their contrasting approaches. And what of his technology? The scouts report unusual preparations in their camp. Their leader remains committed to traditional combat, Masaru observed, but the commander has shown increasing independence from established protocols. He'll cheat if necessary, Kenji translated bluntly, but only if he's losing. This assessment aligned with Takeshi's own observations of the ambitious commander. Vex'tar had demonstrated both exceptional skill and philosophical flexibility throughout their encounters, a combination suggesting he valued outcome above process when sufficiently pressured. Then I must push him to that point without creating vulnerability I cannot counter, Takeshi concluded, rising to begin his final preparations. A delicate balance. Toru arrived as Takeshi donned his armor, the blacksmith carrying modifications designed specifically for the day's challenge. I've reinforced the plates protecting your injured side, he explained, helping secure the customized pieces. Layered construction that distributes impact rather than merely absorbing it. At cost to mobility, Takeshi noted, testing the slightly restricted movement. A calculated compromise, Toru acknowledged. Perfect defense or perfect movement. One must choose when both cannot be achieved simultaneously. As the final preparations concluded, a village scout arrived breathless from observing the alien encampment. Commander Vex'tar has been in heated discussion with their leader since before dawn, he reported. Their gestures suggest significant disagreement about today's proceedings. The philosophical division Hiroshi observed grows more pronounced, Takeshi noted. Did you witness anything else of significance? The scout hesitated before continuing. In the pre-dawn darkness, the commander separated briefly from their group. He appeared to be testing some device integrated within his armor, something that caused brief illumination beneath his plating before he concealed it as others approached. This confirmation of their suspicions brought grim exchange of glances among the Ronin. Their leader may not sanction technological enhancement, Masaru observed, but the commander appears prepared to employ it regardless. Then we prepare accordingly, Takeshi stated, completing his final equipment check. The procession assembles. Let us meet whatever comes with clarity and purpose. The journey to the dueling ground proceeded with unprecedented formality. The entire village had assembled to witness this potentially decisive confrontation, creating procession that stretched well beyond previous ceremonies. Takeshi walked at its center, flanked by Kenji and Masaru in protective formation that served both ceremonial and practical purpose. Behind them came Miyako, Toru, and the village leadership, followed by ordinary farmers and craftspeople whose lives hung in the balance of this extraordinary contest. Throughout the procession, Takeshi maintained perfect posture despite his injury, each step measured and deliberate. Today was not merely another duel, but potential culmination of their entire encounter with these beings from beyond the stars. The score stood evenly balanced, humans 2, aliens 2, with momentum having shifted toward the visitors following Hiroshi's defeat. Whether today's outcome would conclude their challenge or merely establish advantage for a final confrontation remained uncertain. But its significance was questioned by none. As they crested the final rise overlooking the dueling ground, the alien delegation came into view. Their formation showed subtle but meaningful differences from previous arrangements. The leader still occupied central position, But Commander Vex'tar stood with unprecedented proximity, the spatial relationship suggesting power shift within their hierarchy. Their champion, though present, showed clear evidence of injuries sustained against Hiroshi, its posture slightly compromised despite evident effort to maintain ceremonial dignity. Most striking was the arrangement of ordinary warriors, who now formed semicircular pattern behind their leadership that created impression of witness gallery rather than merely honor guard. The configuration suggested this encounter had gained significance beyond merely sequential progression, recognition that philosophical questions would be resolved alongside practical outcome. The ceremonial preliminaries proceeded with enhanced elaboration, each side presenting formal acknowledgments that transcended merely procedural requirement. Takeshi noted how the alien leader's gestures carried additional emphasis during his ritual movements, as though attempting to reinforce traditional parameters through ceremony alone. Beside him, Commander Vex'tar performed the required protocols with perfect technical execution that nonetheless suggested impatience beneath procedural compliance. When the formalities concluded, Takeshi stepped forward into the dueling area, his movement betraying nothing of his injured condition. Commander Vex'tar mirrored his approach, forearms currently at ceremonial rest, but clearly containing potential for explosive action. They faced each other across the neutral ground, each assessing the other with professional evaluation that transcended species differences. The alien commander was neither the largest nor most physically imposing of their warriors, yet something in his bearing communicated exceptional capability. His armor integrated functional design with leadership signifiers, practical protection, alongside status indicators. Most notable was the quality of his attention, not merely combat readiness, but intellectual engagement, the sense of mind analyzing multiple dimensions simultaneously. Takeshi drew his katana with deliberate control, the blade describing perfect arc as it cleared the scabbard. He assumed his ready position, not the textbook stance of demonstration matches, but practical guard optimized for his current condition, slightly favoring his uninjured side while maintaining balanced defensive capability. The commander responded with his own weapon deployment, producing curved blades for his upper limbs, while his lower arms held implements that combined defensive and offensive functions. His stance widened slightly, four limbs arranging themselves in configuration unlike those displayed by previous alien combatants. Not the traditional patterns of their champion, but something more adaptive, as though continuously evaluating optimal positioning rather than adhering to established forms. For several heartbeats, neither moved. Around them, the gathered observers, human and alien alike, maintained perfect silence, recognition that this confrontation carried weight beyond merely individual combat outcome. Commander Vex'tar initiated the first exchange, not with overwhelming aggression or formulaic testing, but calculated engagement designed to prompt specific response patterns. His movement demonstrated exceptional coordination between upper and lower arm pairs, creating attack sequence that addressed multiple defensive zones simultaneously while maintaining perfect balance between commitment and retention. Takeshi responded with minimal movement, deflecting rather than blocking, conserving energy while gathering information about his opponent's patterns. He noted immediately how Vex'tar's technique differed from previous aliens, less formulaic in its structure, more responsive in its adaptation. Where the champion had embodied perfect execution of established methodology, the commander displayed continuous evaluation alongside technical implementation. His style is unique, Masaru observed quietly from the sidelines, not merely executing techniques, but seemingly creating them in response to specific conditions. Indeed, as the initial exchanges progressed, Vex'tar displayed fighting approach, unlike anything they had previously encountered among the aliens. His four arms created continuous threat without establishing predictable patterns, each sequence flowing from the previous engagement's outcome rather than predetermined methodology. Most concerning was his apparent ability to identify and target weaknesses with uncanny precision, his attacks increasingly focusing on Takeshi's injured side, despite no obvious indication of this vulnerability. He reads movement patterns, Kenji noted with professional appreciation, despite the concerning implications. Identifying compensation adjustments that reveal underlying limitations. Takeshi adapted his approach accordingly, deliberately varying his movement patterns to prevent exploitation of his injury while maintaining defensive integrity. The exchange evolved from mere testing into genuine contest, each participant demonstrating exceptional capability while revealing as little as possible about their ultimate capacity. As they moved through the dueling area, Takeshi noted how Commander Vex'tar continuously assessed his responses, each exchange seemingly providing data for subsequent attack refinement. This analytical approach represented different kind of danger than the champion's overwhelming technical mastery. Not merely superior execution, but continuous adaptation, learning and applying insights within the combat itself, rather than merely between encounters. The duel's intensity increased gradually, each exchange building upon previous interactions while introducing new elements. Vex'tar's four-armed technique created attack combinations of extraordinary complexity, each limb operating both independently and in concert with the others. Takeshi's response demonstrated his own mastery, never attempting to match the alien's advantages directly, but exploiting the fractional gaps between coordinated movements, finding efficiency where his opponent created complexity. Midway through the contest, subtle shift occurred in the commander's approach. Where his initial attacks had been primarily investigative, they now carried increased commitment. Transitions from assessment to determination, as though having identified exploitable vulnerability requiring decisive engagement. His focus on Takeshi's injured side became more pronounced. Attacks structured to force defensive movements that would stress the compromised area. Takeshi recognized this transition immediately, adjusting his strategy to create deliberate openings away from his injury, inviting attacks toward seemingly vulnerable areas that actually offered counter-opportunity. This approach represented calculated risk, requiring perfect timing to transform apparent vulnerability into tactical advantage. The strategy proved effective, if temporarily. When Commander Vex'tar committed to particularly aggressive sequence targeting what appeared to be exposed position, Takeshi executed perfect counter that found opening in the alien's four-armed defense. His blade scored light wound at junction, where upper left arm connected to torso. Minor damage physically, but significant psychological impact as the first successful strike of the encounter. Green fluid marked the commander's armor where the blade had penetrated, visible evidence that despite his advantages, the alien was not invulnerable. A ripple of reaction passed through both contingents of observers, tension from the aliens, momentary hope from the humans. Commander Vex'tar straightened, his mask vents expanding slightly in what might have been surprise or reassessment. He adjusted his stance, four arms reconfiguring into modified positioning that suggested tactical recalibration rather than merely defensive reinforcement. The wound appeared to have minimal effect on his physical capability, but its psychological impact manifested in subtle shift toward increased aggression, move from calculated exchange toward determined resolution. What followed demonstrated why Vex'tar held position of authority among his kind. His attacks now flowed with heightened purpose, alongside increased technical sophistication, creating combinations that tested Takeshi's defensive capabilities to their absolute limit. Where before there had been measurable pauses between attack series, now the commander moved with continuous motion that left minimal opportunity for preparation or recovery. Takeshi adapted as best he could, drawing upon every technique he had mastered through years of disciplined practice. He incorporated elements from all his fellow Ronin: Kenji's unpredictability, Masaru's defensive precision, Hiroshi's strategic disengagement, Daiichi's balanced aggression. Yet each successful defense seemed only to prompt more sophisticated offense from his alien opponent, as though Vex'tar's analytical capability was continuously refining his approach based on observed responses. As the duel entered extended duration, Takeshi's injury began asserting increasing influence, despite Miyako's medicinal intervention. Movements that had been merely uncomfortable initially now produced sharp pain signals that required conscious management to prevent affecting his technique. The commander, with his continuous assessment capability, appeared to recognize these subtle indicators of increasing limitation, his attacks increasingly structured to exploit this progressive vulnerability. "He's identifying the pattern of deterioration," Masaru observed with professional concern, calculating the intersection of increasing limitation with overwhelming capability. The critical juncture arrived when Takeshi, executing defensive sequence against particularly complex four-armed attack, experienced momentary muscle failure in his injured side. The lapse was fractional, but sufficient for the commander to exploit, one of his lower blades finding opening that scored shallow but painful cut across Takeshi's already compromised area. Blood now visible on his armor, Takeshi was forced into increasingly defensive positioning, the parameters of the contest shifting decisively toward the commander's advantage. Vex'tar pressed this opening with calculated aggression, his attacks structured to systematically dismantle the human's remaining defensive options while preventing effective counter-opportunity. From the sidelines, both contingents recognized the duel's trajectory had shifted significantly. The alien observers displayed subtle but discernible anticipation, their champion's posture suggesting professional appreciation for approaching victory despite his own recent defeat. Among the humans, concern manifested in tense silence, recognition that their primary defender faced increasingly insurmountable disadvantage due to combination of prior injury and opponent's exceptional capability. Yet something unexpected occurred as the situation appeared most dire. Rather than displaying desperation or resignation, Takeshi achieved sudden integration between acceptance and adaptation, not denying his limitation, but transforming it from vulnerability to parameter, exactly as Miyako had suggested through her medicinal preparation. His technique shifted toward perfect efficiency, eliminating all unnecessary movement while maintaining essential function. This transformation produced immediate effect in the duel's dynamics. Where Commander Vex'tar had been systematically exploiting perceived deterioration, he now faced opponent demonstrating renewed effectiveness despite unchanged physical condition. The adaptation created momentary hesitation in the alien's previously relentless assault, fractional pause that Takeshi exploited to create breathing space through perfectly timed disengagement. The brief respite allowed both combatants to reassess their positions, each recognizing critical juncture had been reached in their contest. For Takeshi, the reality remained unavoidable. His injury created fundamental limitation that would eventually prove decisive, regardless of technical adaptation. For Commander Vex'tar, the human's unexpected resilience presented tactical problem requiring solution beyond merely continued pressure. It was in this moment, with both participants fully committed to the encounter's significance, that subtle but unmistakable change occurred in the commander's demeanor. His mask tilted slightly toward the alien leader, then back to his human opponent, body language suggesting internal calculation regarding options and consequences. Though impossible to discern his alien features, something in his posture communicated decision point, weighing tradition against ambition, process against outcome. When combat resumed, Initial exchanges suggested unchanged parameters, the commander pressing his advantage through four-armed technique, while Takeshi maintained defensive integrity through perfect efficiency. Yet close observers noticed subtle differences in the alien's movement quality, fractional acceleration beyond previous capability, coordination between limbs achieving unprecedented precision. Takeshi recognized the shift immediately, his experienced combat awareness detecting the unnatural quality now manifest in his opponent's technique. Though visually subtle, the change in performance parameters suggested technological enhancement rather than merely increased effort. Artificial augmentation beyond biological capacity, precisely as their scouts had warned, might occur. From the alien observation area, their leader's posture changed abruptly. Straightening with what appeared to be surprise or concern, attention now focused exclusively on his commander rather than the overall exchange. The champion and other warriors similarly displayed reactions suggesting this development represented unexpected violation rather than anticipated escalation. For Takeshi, the immediate tactical reality transcended moral consideration. Regardless of means, he now faced opponent whose capabilities exceeded normal parameters in ways that created overwhelming disadvantage. The commander's movements had acquired speed and precision that allowed him to exploit openings within fractions of seconds when they appeared, while generating attack combinations of complexity that defied conventional defensive methodology. Yet rather than surrendering to inevitable defeat, Takeshi achieved new level of focus that transcended his physical limitations. Drawing upon lifetime of disciplined practice alongside the immediate necessity of survival, he entered state where each moment expanded into detailed analysis, perceiving patterns within chaos, identifying structural necessities within seemingly overwhelming complexity. This heightened awareness allowed him to maintain defensive integrity despite the commander's enhanced capabilities, not through matching speed or power, but through perfect positioning and anticipation. Where direct opposition would have proved immediately fatal, Takeshi created continuous defensive adaptation that transformed the duel from overwhelming force application to problem-solving exchange. "Extraordinary," Kenji whispered, professional appreciation overriding concern for his companion's dire situation. "He's fighting the pattern rather than the individual attacks." Indeed, Takeshi had identified that despite the commander's technological enhancement, certain fundamental constraints remained unavoidable: sequencing requirements, balance necessities, biomechanical limitations that even artificial augmentation couldn't completely eliminate. By focusing exclusively on these structural elements rather than specific techniques, he maintained survival capability despite overwhelming disadvantage. The exchange continued with increasing intensity, Commander Vex'tar pressing his illegitimate advantage with growing frustration as his expected swift victory failed to materialize. His attacks became increasingly committed, technological enhancement pushing his capabilities to parameters that stressed even his own control systems. Green fluid now marked multiple locations on his armor where the exertion had caused connection points to leak under pressure, visible evidence that his artificial advantage carried natural limitations. Takeshi identified potential opportunity within this progressive deterioration, not victory possibility, but revealing chance, moment where the commander's violation might become undeniably evident to all observers rather than merely suspected by those with specialized knowledge. Such revelation would not save him from defeat, but might establish truth beyond merely personal survival. The critical sequence developed when Commander Vex'tar, frustrated by his opponent's continued resistance despite overwhelming advantage, committed to particularly aggressive combination that momentarily compromised his defensive integrity in pursuit of decisive conclusion. Takeshi, recognizing both the opportunity and its cost, made conscious decision to accept additional injury in exchange for a revealing strike, What followed occurred almost too rapidly for observers to process completely. The commander's enhanced attack landed with devastating effectiveness, his blade finding Takeshi's injured side with precision that cut through reinforced armor to create significant new wound. Simultaneously, Takeshi's counterstroke, not aimed at vital target but at specific junction in the alien's armor, landed with perfect placement to expose the technological enhancement hidden beneath external plating. The impact dislodged concealment panel, revealing pulsing mechanism clearly integrated with the commander's nervous system through connection points that violated the alien's established combat protocols. The device emitted bright energy signature now visible to all observers, unmistakable evidence of artificial augmentation beyond biological capability. Blood flowing freely from his significant new injury, Takeshi fell to one knee, strength rapidly diminishing from combined effect of previous wound and fresh damage. Before him, Commander Vex'tar paused momentarily, the exposed technology continuing to pulse with energy that enhanced his capabilities beyond legitimate parameters. Rather than immediately pressing his advantage to conclusion, the commander seemed caught in moment of realization. Recognition that his violation had become visible to all observers, including his own leadership hierarchy. His mask turned briefly towards the alien contingent, where the leader had risen to full height, posture communicating unmistakable recognition regarding what had been revealed. Yet instead of accepting this exposure, Commander Vex'tar appeared to make final choice, prioritizing victory above honor. His enhanced systems suddenly increased output, the pulsing technology intensifying as he prepared to deliver conclusive strike against his wounded opponent, choosing to complete his victory through illegitimate means rather than accept the consequences of his exposed violation. Takeshi, blood pooling beneath him on the dueling ground, raised his blade in final defensive positioning, not with expectation of successful opposition, but with determination to maintain dignity until the conclusion, regardless of its nature. His eyes met the alien commander's mask directly, communication passing between them without words or gestures, acknowledgement that while this contest might end in death, truth had been established beyond potential denial. As Commander Vex'tar began his final attack sequence, movement unnaturally accelerated through technological enhancement beyond biological limitation. The alien leader took step forward from the observation area, intervention unprecedented in their previous encounters. What would follow remained uncertain, balanced between multiple potential outcomes whose significance extended beyond merely individual survival to establish fundamental parameters regarding honor, technology, and worthy opposition across species boundaries. The commander's enhanced blade descended toward Takeshi's exposed position with speed exceeding conventional defensive capability, technology having transformed contest from honorable exchange into predetermined execution. Yet even as this conclusive strike approached, something shifted in the atmosphere surrounding the dueling ground. Recognition that boundaries had been crossed, whose significance transcended merely technical parameters to challenge the fundamental nature of their extraordinary encounter.